وأقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء
بسم الله الرحمن
والمنكر.
الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، صلى الله وسلم وبارك على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back once again, inshallah ta'ala. As you can see, we'll carry on with the Sunan of Salah, which are the highly recommended actions of Salah, because we have the highly recommended actions and then we have the recommended actions, which mostly fall down to the meritorious deeds, which means to say the Sunan of Salah are the second category when it comes to the sources that we use from our deen. We start with the Quran and then we go to the Sunnah. Now when it comes to the hierarchy of the usul, you also know, you know among them, and you start with what? The Fard, and then you come with the Sunnah. So Sunnah comes after Fard, and as you know, as Sunnah, these are complementary acts of Salah which complete the Salah in itself. Which means if there's a certain threshold that one should follow, if one is to ignore and not pay attention to them, you end up realizing that they have to pay a penalty for it in the Salah. It's more or less like a penalty in order to complete that Salah so that it doesn't have any khalal, it doesn't have any gap, any problem in the Salah itself. So when you look at the Sunan of Salah, you notice that Sahibul Kitab nafa'ana Allahu bihi wa bi'ulumihi fi ad-darain amin, Al-Ashmawi, Shaykh Abdul Bari Al-Ashmawi rahmatullahi alayhi fi kitabihi, he says what? وَأَمَّا سُنَنُ الصَّلَاةِ فَاثْنَتَا عَشَرٍ or فَإِثْنَا عَشَرٍ. He says that the Sunan of Salah, they are 12. Whereas you notice in the Sharh of Al-Jawahir Al-Zakiyah, he says that, but actually, بل هي ثمانية عشر. They are what? They are 18. In Ashal al-Masalik, which is one of the highest texts of the madhab, they say that is السنن ثلاثة عشرة. And في المرشد المعين, which is Kitab ibn Ashir rahmatullahi alayh, he says that they are 22 sunnah. They are about 22 sunnahs. So the ulama اختلفوا على ذلك. And when we come to the fada'il, you notice that وَأَمَّا فَضَائِلُهُ فَعَشْرٌ تُذْكَرُ تَسْوِيقُهُ ثُمَّ الْمَكَانُ الطَّاهِرُ. That is in Ashal al-Masalik. Lakin far and beyond, you notice also in this kitab, the one that we are reading into, they're saying that وَأَمَّا فَضَائِلُهُ فَعَشْرٌ. They are 10. But actually, in Ad-Dardir, which is Aqrab al-Masalik, you will find 42 fada'il. And how much is that? 42 fada'il, meritorious acts of Salah. Why do you find that there are differences in the mutun, differences in the books, differences in the text? It's because these differences are there for the talibul ilm الذي يرتقي على ماذا؟ سلم الفقه. The one who is going up the ladder of fiqh, the one who wants to learn. في سلم العلم, they want to take the knowledge and also learn more. You notice that what happens? They break these down slowly but surely. Is, for example, a person that did not know how to eat, and then you teach them how to eat like a young child. Would you feed them meat, rice, pudding, everything that you find? Of course you can't do that. وَأَمَّا الْمَعِدَّةِ لِلْمَعِدَّةِ, what does it have? It has a limitation. You can't really push it to limits where you will harm the person, you will cause them to be in distress. So what happened is that every single person, according to their level, they are fed that which is enough for them. So for now, what we are going to do, inshallah, because of the text that we are into, we're just going to focus on the what? On the ithna ashar sunnah that we have, sunan that we have, inshallah ta'ala. Now of these sunan, I'm going to recite them, and then I'm going to provide you the meaning of them by reciting them one after the other. And then after we're done with that, inshallah, we've completed that part, we're going to look into how do they divide, to categorize them, and how you add them in your salah, and what are the implications of not fulfilling a sunnah according to the type of sunnah itself, inshallah. So pay attention to that. So the first sunnah, if we look into it, you notice that السورة بعد الفاتحة في الركعة الأولى والثانية والقيام لها. Second, والسر فيما يسر فيه والجهر فيما يجهر فيه وكل تكبيرة سنة إلا تكبيرة الإحرام فإنها فرض كما تقدم وسمع الله لمن حمده للإمام والفذ والجلوس الأول والزائد على قدر السلام من الجلوس الثاني ورد المقتدي على إمامه السلام وكذلك رده على من على يساره إن كان على يساره أحد والسترة للإمام والفذ إن خشيا أن يمر أحد بين يديهما. Okay, you can see they sound like a lot, but actually in reality, no, they're not. They're not really a lot as you think. That's the honest truth. Okay, they're really easy to grasp. I'll be very honest with you. And all you need to do, is just listen and pay attention. Why do you need to know the Sunnah, by the way, separate from the Fard itself? The main purpose is because if you are capable of doing that, what it does, it doesn't just teach you how to pray, but also it teaches you the ability of knowing when do you have to repeat your salah, or when do you have to literally remove an entire أن يكون متى تكون الركعة كاملة ملغاة. When does the entire rak'ah becomes invalidated and nullified, that it becomes null, you cannot use it anymore, you have to start a new rak'ah. Basically, you don't count the rak'ah that you're in, you start another one and you start counting again as if it's the rak'ah that you did what? You made a mistake in it. Mathalan, as an example, you're praying and then all of a sudden you came from qiyam all the way to sujood. You missed ruku'. أليس الركوع من الفرائض? Isn't ruku' from the obligations of salah? And you notice that من أركان الصلاة ماذا؟ الركوع. أليس كذلك? Bowing down after qiyam. Now before you go to sujood, you do ruku'. If you missed that and then you completed the rak'ah, then you went to the next rak'ah, or maybe you entered the next rak'ah and you realized that in the previous rak'ah you missed the ruku', then more or less that rak'ah is not counted. It's dropped, and you don't count it in the salah. You count the one that you're in as that rak'ah which you did not complete. I hope that's very clear, inshallah. So when you know the Sunan do not work that way, first of all. And as you know that they do not function in that manner, then you need to know when do you start knowing, okay, now I'm going to invalidate my salah. متى تكون الصلاة باطلة لسبب ترك السنن, because of not fulfilling the Sunan. What type of Sunan? That if I let go of them, it will make my salah either to be batila, or most importantly that you need to learn is that when do I have to do sujood sahu? When do I have to do sujood sahu? Prostration of forgetfulness. Now you notice that is a chapter which we're going to cover later on, inshallah ta'ala, according to what the author provides us, mashallah. Lakin for the time being, we're just going to look at the Sunan so that you can learn, okay, this is when I do sujood sahu, this is when I don't do sujood sahu. And when you come to understand about the sujood sahu, the three types of moments that you can do sujood sahu, and for the reasons, those three types of reasons which cause you to do sujood sahu, according to the Musannif rahmatullahi alayh, what would we do for now? We're just going to cover that which is necessary. So looking at Surah بعد الفاتحة في الركعة الأولى والثانية. What does that mean? It is to read a surah basically to read something, a portion of the Quran. Now over here it says a surah, لكن هل هذه تعني سورة كاملة? Does it mean an entire surah in itself? Actually no, that's not what it means. It doesn't mean you read the whole قل هو الله, Surah Al-Ikhlas. It doesn't mean you read the whole Surah وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ وَالْعَصْرِ, or maybe أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ. That's not what it means. What it means is that you read a portion of the Quran. Okay? You read a portion of the Quran. And you notice that in over here in the Sharh, according to Al-Jawahir Al-Zakiyah, he says أما السورة فليس بلازم بل المدار على أن يأتي بشيء زائد على القرآن ولو آية أو بعض آية وكمال مستحب على المعتمد بعد الفاتحة. Understood? To complete a verse is mustahab, and to complete a surah is mustahab. And in fact, if you do not complete a verse, it will lead it to become a what? A disliked act. You have to complete a verse. Bear that in mind. Lakin what's more important, you notice that even if it's coming with an ayah, just ayah. For example, in Surah Al-Rahman, there's an ayah read as mudhammatan. Only that. and that's only one word. أليس كذلك? For example, if one recites Surah Al-Fatihah, and then in the second reading, which is after the Fatiha, now you're reading the surah, you just say ثم نظر, or maybe you just say ثم عبس وبصر. That is literally just two words. ثم نظر, two words. مدهامتان. You notice that what? It's one word. كما يقول العلماء في الحاشية, what do they say? كمدهامتان, like مدهامتان. Is that accepted? نعم, it's accepted. So when surah is mentioned, you only bring at least a verse after Surah Al-Fatiha. But when do you do this? On the first raka'ah and the second raka'ah. فمثلا صلاة الصبح, which we do not call صلاة الفجر. In the madhab we call it صلاة الصبح, because فجر رغيبة وتقضى للزوال. صلاة الفجر are the two raka'at that you do before, among the nafl, the sunan muakkada, which you do before the salatul subh itself, the main faridah. Bear that in mind. So because of this reason, what happens? You need to understand the differences of the two. When it comes to Salatul Subh, both raka'at, what do? You come with a surah after the Fatiha of each unit. When it comes to Salatul Dhuhr, the first two raka'ah, مُمَعَدَ الرَّكَعَتَيْنِ الْأَخِيرَتَيْن, without including the two raka'at after the two first raka'at. So you have four raka'at. The first two after Fatiha, you read a surah. Same with Surah Al-Asr. And same with Surah Al-Maghrib, lakin on the last raka'ah, there's no surah in Surah Al-Maghrib. Lakin in Surah Al-Isha, in Surah Al-Isha, you come with what? A surah in the first two raka'at, and then after the first two raka'at, on the last two raka'at, it's only Fatiha and no surah on in those two raka'at as well. So what do you notice over here? That Al-Fatihatu Ummul Kitab, Ummul Quran. Al-Fatiha, it is the mother of the Quran. You have to come with it. لذلك قال الشيخ رحمه الله تعالى نفعنا الله بعلومه وبه في الدارين. You notice that بل المدار على أن يأتي بشيء زائد على القرآن. القرآن, the mother of the Quran, the motherboard of the Quran, like literally that which governs the whole Quran. ولماذا سميت الفاتحة بأم القرآن? It's because Al-Fatiha, let alone it becoming the first surah, but actually it is the introduction of the entire Quran. It summarizes the whole Quran in one place. And this is just one example that I'm giving you. ألست أنت الذي تقرأ? Isn't it us that we always read every single day? Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawm Ad-Din, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. We commence by mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, صح? And when we commence by mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah wants to teach us how do we mention Him. It's in the Quran. That's how it starts. وما بعد ذلك ماذا؟ إياك نعبد, you alone we worship, وإياك نستعين, and you alone we seek help from. How do you know how to worship the one who is telling you how to say that you are worshipping Him? How do you know? Until He teaches you. So you notice that worship comes from the Quran. And then you ask Allah, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, guide us to the straight path, to the steadfast path. I don't want people to translate the word mustaqim constantly by saying straight path. Because the word istaqama, yastaqimu, is exactly what Rasulullah ﷺ was told. فَاسْتَقِمْ كَمَا أُمِرْتَ وَمَنْ تَابَ مَعَكَ وَلَا تَطْغَوْا. Istaqim, it doesn't mean be straight. That's not what it means. It means be steadfast. Stand straight and firm on the path. Because remember, the ibtila'at that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will test you with, you will need to have that thick skin. You will need to have that zeal. You will need to have that heart, the ability to stand firm. So what you need is the guidance of how do you stand firm? How do you follow that path, which is the difficult path which one should take? So you ask Allah to show you the guidance. That's why you say, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم ولا يجدها أحد. No one will find it إلا في القرآن. No one will find it except in the Quran. It's in the Quran. The guidance is in the Quran and nowhere else. That's why Allah tells us, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم ومن يطع الله والرسول فأولئك مع الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا ذلك الفضل من الله وكفى بالله عليما. أليس كذلك? Those who obey Allah and His Messenger, then they are the ones whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed. And who are those? The prophets, the truthful ones, and the shuhada, the martyrs, and the righteous ones, and the best of company, the perfect of company are these ones, isn't it? Hasn't it been the best of company to look at them? And that is a fadl from Allah. But in order for us to be included in the fadl of Allah, we have to recognize the fact that when we tell Allah, Idina Sirat al-Mustaqim, we have to constantly recite it in Salah, so that when we are in Salah, Allah constantly reminds us that you need to ask me. And I'm telling you, ask me. And then when you are doing those dua in salah, the ad'iyah in salah, you are asking Allah for the guidance. You don't think that you're saying subhanallah wa bihamdihi for no reason. Don't think that you're saying subhana rabbil azim for no reason. Not that you're saying at-tahiyyatu lillah, zakiyatu lillah, tayyibatu salawatu lillah for no reason. All of them have a reason. Rabbi ghfirli warhamni. Aren't those dua? Are you seeking forgiveness? Are you connecting to Allah? So think about it. When you want the fadl from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the ni'mah, Allah has given you a blueprint that you and I need to follow, inshaAllah ta'ala. لذلك تجد في كل ركعة, every single rak'ah, whether sunnah salah or whether fard salah, it does not, it's regardless of what salah it is, you have to read Surah Al-Fatihah first. Now you know when to read a surah after the Fatiha, inshaAllah ta'ala. Number 2, al-qiyamu laha, to stand for the surah. Now you notice al-qiyamu lihada is different from what? It's different from al-qiyamu lil-fatihati wa-takbira. It's different from standing for the Fatiha and the takbira. Like in something which is very, very important that you need to bear in mind is this. When it comes to these 12 Sunan, the first 4 you have to be very, very careful of. The first 4 you have to be very careful of. And what are they? Surah ba'd al-Fatiha. Okay, surah after the Fatiha. Al-qiyamu laha, standing for the surah. And as-sirru fima yusarru fihi, reciting in secret where you should be reciting in secret. Wal-jahru fima yujharu fihi, and also to read aloud when you have to raise your voice in that salah. Now what salawat do you raise your voice? Salatul subh, number 1, you have to raise your voice. وهذا is not only specifically for men, it's also for women as well. Salatul Subh, number 1. Salatul Dhuhr, Salatul Maghrib, Salatul Maghrib, number 2. And Salatul Isha. 3 salawat. Salawat al-Layliya, the salawat that you pray basically when it's still dark, those salawat are the ones that you literally pray with your voices higher, but voices loud. But when you read the salawat during the day, you notice that the salawat during the day, you do not raise your voice. Your voice has to be what? Has to be low. Now, ما هي مقدار السر وما هي مقدار الجهر? What are the limitations and also the measurements that we can follow for what? For the sir, if it's regarded to be sir, secretly, and what are the measurements of reading out loud if you have to read out loud? You notice that according to the sharh, if you read into it, you find that a sirr, when it comes to a man, literally, and a woman, is more or less the same. When it comes to the sirr, it's more or less the same. When you read, there's 2 types of sirr. The highest of sirr, like basically the highest of breathing in a very low voice, is when you don't hear yourself, but it's the movement of the lips and the tongue. The movement of the lips and the tongue. Harakatul lisani wa shafatayn. That's what it is. Basically harakatul lisan. Lakin the lowest of sir, you notice that when it comes to the sharh, this one that I'm reading, Al-Jawahir al-Zakiyah, it says that the highest of sir is the opposite of what I'm trying to tell you. Lakin when you read to the Hashia, they literally said no. Actually, the Musannif rahimahullah ta'ala, what he provided is the opposite way of what was supposed to be provided. It's as this: when the highest of sir, the highest of reading secretly, is when your voice is completely silent, and what you're doing is moving your tongue and you're moving your lips, perhaps. That's what you're doing, but mainly your tongue. And then the lowest of sir, where now it's not secret anymore, it's when you can hear yourself. Not that the person praying with you, they can hear you. La 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 la. Khilafan li Shafi'iyya. The Shafi'iyya, they have a different understanding of this, and they have a different opinion on this, and their madhab is different. Like when it comes to the Malikiyya, what happens, you have to read, if your voice becomes a bit higher, now it's not secret anymore, then it should not surpass a level where only you can hear yourself and not the one who is following you, or maybe someone around you can hear you. That's what it is. Like when it comes to jahran, for a man, not for a female. For a female, a woman has to read to a level where she can hear herself. وليس ولا يجوز فوق ذلك. You should not really read any louder than that for a woman. But for a man, you have to read in a voice that so that the one behind you, perhaps, if that person is next to you, they can hear you. All right, they can hear you. And the lowest of all, and the lowest of jahr, is what? Is when you can hear yourself only. When you can hear yourself. If you go lower than that, now that for a man becomes secretive. You're reading secretly, you're reading quietly, so that you can't even hear yourself. So the lowest of jahr, of reading explicitly so you can be heard, is hearing yourself. وَهَذَا لِلْفَذْ, if you're praying alone though. But if you're being led with, you're leading someone, you're the imam, you have to raise your voice a bit higher so that that person behind you can hear you. Otherwise your voice becomes a bit lower, inshaAllah ta'ala. So why do we say that these four, they're very critical compared to the other ones that we are going to mention bi'idhnillahi al-kareem? It's because the surah that you miss after the Fatiha, the surah that you miss after the Fatiha, this is the problem. You are dismissing 3 sunnahs at once. Bear this in mind. You are missing 3 sunnahs at once. Sunnah number 1, you did not recite the surah. Okay? You did not recite the surah. Sunnah number 2, while you were standing and reciting, or maybe you were seated and reciting, because you still have to come with the surah, you did not come with it. We're talking specifically about the faridah here. We're not talking about the sunan of salawat. We're talking about the salawatul mafruḍah. The salawat which they are obligatory prayers, you have to fulfill them. If you miss reading it, the surah, then you've missed the surah, number 1, and you did not read it while standing in the position that you were supposed to be reading it. And number 3, the third sunnah that you miss, is you either had to read it out aloud or you either had to read it out in secret. Either one of these 3. Either implicitly or explicitly you had to read it by your voice being risen or your voice not heard. That's number 1. You missed another sunnah which is standing for it, which is in the position that you are supposed to be in, and also reciting it. Now what happens in this case? In this case, ماذا يحصل? You have to go sujood sahu, and those are sajdatain that you do before salam, لكن after the tashahhud. Before salam, الجلسة الأخيرة بعد التشهد تسجد سجدتين للسهو. You do sujood for sajdatul sahu, 2 of them. And then when you get up from the second one, you do salam. You do 1 salam, inshaAllah ta'ala. Why was it critical? It was because of this reason. You have to bear in mind. That's number 1. What if you recite the surah and you are capable of standing and you did not stand? Mathalan, you've dismissed, first of all, you've dismissed a sunnah. Second, that's 1. And number 2, you have committed a makruh, which might cause your salah to become even batila. لأنك جئت بالحركات الكثيرة. Alright, you came with a lot of what? A lot of movement, and a lot of movement in salah, as long as the urf can recognize that this person, maybe he's in salah or not, then you're in trouble. You're causing your salah to become batila. You have to be very careful. And there is more than that which I don't want to delve into, but I just wanted to clarify that for you, inshaAllah ta'ala. But you take, so that you can leave with this at the very least, if not all of the other masail bi'idhnillahi al-kareem. Barakallahu feekum. So we've done 4. Number 5, وكل تكبيرة سنة إلا تكبيرة الإحرام. واختلف العلماء في هذا. أشهب ماذا قال أشهب قال كل مجموع, by saying that all of the takbirat ما عدا تكبيرة الإحرام, they are regarded as one bulk takbirat. So there are no differences from them. وخالفه ابن القاسم رحمة الله عليه ماذا قال? He said that every takbirah is a sunnah. وهو الراجح في المذهب. That is the most accepted opinion and the right one in the madhab. Pardon me. And the right one in the madhab that one should follow. So what do you notice? وَكُلُّ تَكْبِيرَةٍ سُنَّةٍ. Every single takbirah, there's an issue called كُلُّ مَجْمُوعِ وَكُلُّ جَمِيعِ. And this is something related to mantiq. وَكَمَا عَلَّمَنَا الشيخ حفظه الله تعالى. You notice that you have to know the differences of this. That's why you see something like mantiq, logic, the study of the science of logic, you notice that it comes handy at the moment. So كُلُّ مَجْمُوعِ is the qawl of Ashhab, and كُلُّ جَمِيعِ, that is the qawl of man? is the qawl of man هذا qawl ibn al-Qasim. لذلك you notice that over here in the sharh, what does it say? وهل التكبير كله سنة واحدة? Every single takbir, is it regarded as one type sunnah, one type of bulk sunnah put together? هذا قول أشهب وهو ضعيف. أو كل تكبيرة سنة مستقلة, or every single takbirah is a sunnah that which stands on its own. هذا قول ابن قاسم وهذا المعتمد. Okay, وهذا هو المعتمد. That is what we take as the strongest of the madhab, inshallah ta'ala. So what do you regard? Every single sunnah is a what? Is a, every single takbirah is a sunnah. So what does this mean? If for example you went Allahu Akbar takbiratul ihram, أليس كذلك؟ أنت أحرمت في دخول للدخول في الصلاة. You have made everything else haram ما عدا Allah تبارك وتعالى, because everything else is haram except for Allah, because you are there for Allah. It's not, you should not be thinking about businesses, not be thinking about family. You should not be thinking about your next venture that you're going to be following on. You should not be thinking about the next meeting. You should not be even thinking about the next taxi deal that you're going to get. Like some of the brothers in the masjid, while they are praying, you notice when they get a call, so a customer, they click their buttons on the, while in salah. Literally, they accept the customer's the customer's request, and then they move on with it. Some people literally get a phone call. I have witnessed this with my own eyes. Someone gets a phone call, they pick up the phone and they loudly say Allahu Akbar while they're in salah. Why would you want to do that? Someone else, literally their phone will be ringing and they will decide to even hang it up while in salah. Why would you do that? Why would you do shughul that literally is only committed by those who are not in salah? You don't need to do that if you prepared yourself beforehand. أليس كذلك? So you have to be really careful. When it comes to takbirah now, takbirah, the other takbirat, ما عدا تكبيرة الإحرام, if you miss, let's say you did the first takbirah, now you're going to ruku', you didn't do one takbirah, that's skipping a sunnah. That's one sunnah now, you're fine with it. What about second one? What about a second? What if you come from the ruku', you said Sami Allahu liman hamida, but while going down for sujood, you didn't say takbirah again? That's two. You can be forgiven for that. What about three? You dismiss takbirah again third time, you must come with sujood al-sahw, forgetfulness sujood. If not, and you've left the premises, and that is for sujood al-sahw ma qabla salam, that is for before salam, what happens? تكون صلاتك باطلة. Your salah becomes باطلة. If your salah becomes invalid straight away, it will be nullified and not accepted. You have to be very careful with that. So you notice every takbirah sunnatun, every takbirah is a sunnah mustaqillah on its own. So you have to know every takbirah is counted differently. You have to bear that in mind, inshaAllah ta'ala. What's the other one that we need to look into? And that will be number 6. وَسَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ لِلْإِمَامِ وَالْفَذِّ. But something that you need to take over here, which has not been mentioned, is going to be mentioned in the fadilah. I'll give it to you inshallah ta'ala. What does this mean? And سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ لِلْإِمَامِ وَالْفَذِّ is to say سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ when you're coming from ruku' and now you're standing straight. Basically from ruku' and you're standing straight. While you're standing straight, you say سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ. Now when the imam is leading the salah, does he say رَبَّنَا لَكَ الْحَمْدِ? Does he say that? No. If he is an imam, the ma'moom are the one that say رَبَّنَا لَكَ الْحَمْدِ. The ma'moom does not say سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَ. لا. The ma'moom only says رَبَّنَا لَكَ الْحَمْدِ. Bear that in mind. But al-fadh, what does it mean? Al-fadh means if you're praying individually, alone. If you're praying alone, then you say سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ, which is a sunnah, and then you say رَبَّنَا لَكَ الْحَمْدِ, which is a fadilah, a meritorious act in salah, and it's lower than a sunnah. Bear that in mind. So that's what you needed to understand and also clarify in between. When do you say رَبَّنَا لَكَ الْحَمْدِ alone? When you are a ma'mumah being led by the imam, and the imam only says سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ. Lakin if you are praying alone, then what do? You do both سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ and رَبَّنَا لَكَ الْحَمْدِ. Simple as that. Another one is al-julusul awwal, which should be number 7 if I'm not wrong. Al-julusul awwal means the first sitting of the tashahhud before the third raka'ah. The first sitting of the tashahhud before the first raka'ah. Bear that in mind. Okay. وَالزَّائِدُ عَلَى قَدْرِ السَّلَامِ مِنَ الْجُلُوسِ الثَّانِي. and you have to sit for the second julus now. This is the second julus, at least at a certain period of time, as if you were reading tashahhud, even if you don't know it. I hope you remember the case of the new Muslim that just embraced Islam and they don't know what to recite while in Salah and they're praying alone. Maybe they only know the Fatihah, or maybe they don't even know the Fatihah. In this case, what happens? This person, when he sits for the last sujood, for the last jalsa, al-jalsatul akhira fi salah, for the tashahhud, he sits for a little bit longer. And that is a sunnah, you have to fulfill it. You sit a little bit longer, like a few seconds, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, so that you can do what? Sit as if you were doing tashahhud, and then you do salam. وَالزَّائِدُ عَلَى قَدْرِ السَّلَامِ مِنَ الْجُلُوسِ الثَّانِي. On the second julus, while you're sitting down for the last tashahhud, when you're seated, perhaps if you don't know what to read, you stay a little bit longer. You prolong the time a little bit, 20 seconds, 15 seconds, and 30 seconds perhaps, according to how you will take it as long, but you don't extend it 2 minutes, 1 minute, or beyond that. That's going to be too long. Bear that in mind. So what do? You sit a little bit longer, and then what do? You do salam. That's how you do it. That's a sunnah as well. And also, there are other sunan that are mentioned here. Some of the ulama, they do not regard them as part of the sunnah, whereas some they do still regard it as part of the sunnah. But personally, I will tell you, when it comes to these sunan that we have over here, more or less I will kind of put them together, because there is one which is regarded as a sunnah, but it doesn't have to be a sunnah. It can be regarded as a meritorious deed. But let's just put them together, inshallah ta'ala, and reduce them down to at least 10. So we have another one is وَرَدُّ الْمُقْتَدِي عَلَى إِمَامِهِ السَّلَامِ. And the muqtadi, the follower of the imam, the ma'moom, literally, basically, the ma'moom can be called ma'moom and also can be called al-muqtadi. لأنه مقلد للإمام. He's a follower of the imam. He's following the imam. You're not really coming with salah alone. You're not doing a salah behind the imam which is yours. Actually, you're following the imam. Because when it comes to following the imam, there are rules that you need to follow. What if the imam increases in the salah itself? And what do you do in this case? Al tukhalifu al-imam? Do you do the opposite of what the imam does? Or do you follow the imam? Or in that case, when does your salah become batila? When does your salah become sahih? And in that case as well, in those cases, when do you protect your salah from it becoming batila even if the imam is wrong? When do you protect your salah from it becoming invalid even if the imam is wrong? There are rules that we need to learn, inshallah ta'ala. But before we even get there, we're not going to pay attention to those bi'idillah for the time being. But as you know, one of them is that if a person is being led and the imam is right in front of them, in this case, what happens to them? They do the first salam, and then in the madhab you do the second salam facing the imam. You do the second salam facing the imam. Okay? Now, what if you entered salah on the last rak'ah, but you missed the ruku'? Because how do you know that you've caught the imam? How do you know that you are a follower of the imam? It's when you catch the imam at the very least on the last rak'ah, at the very least on the ruku' position. While the imam is on a state of ruku' and you caught the imam then, and the imam has not stood up from ruku' yet, then you have caught the imam at the very least, and anta masbuq. Then you are a person that you have missed parts of the salah, but you are still regarded as a muqtadi, as a ma'moom of the imam, as the follower of the imam. Like if you come in the last rak'ah and you missed the imam from ruku', and you found the imam has already stood up from ruku', from this moment onwards, you are not a masbuq. You are not a person that you are regarded as man fatathu raka'at. The one that literally the salah has passed them anymore while following the imam, and he's not regarded as a muqtadi or a ma'moom anymore. He just followed the jama'ah, but he's not going to be among the jama'ah. Why so? It's because he did not catch a rak'ah with the imam. That's according to the madhab. So in this case, do you return the salam to the imam even if you were in the salah while the imam was saying assalamu alaikum? Do you return it? No. That's the correct answer. So what happens in this case? You just say assalamu alaikum for yourself, khalas. But for the imam there's nothing, because you are not part of the salah. That's how it is. But if you catch the Imam on the last rak'ah, what if you catch the Imam on the first rak'ah, second rak'ah, third rak'ah? We are not talking about those because those are okay. You still call the Imam in Salah. Lakin on the last rak'ah, whether it's Salatul Maghrib, whether it's Salatul Subh, or the other rak'ah, salawat which have arba rak'at, that has 4 rak'at. In this case, we know, it's easy. Lakin what about Salatul Subh on the second rak'ah? You catch the Imam in ruku', then you've caught the Imam and you are ma'moom now. What if you catch the Imam and the Imam has come out from ruku'? In this case, it's different. Bear that in mind. You're not a ma'moom anymore. It's different. So you do return the salam to the Imam? No, you don't. No, you don't. وَكَذَلِكَ now another one, another sunnah. وَكَذَلِكَ رَدُّهُ عَلَى مَنْ عَلَى يَسَارِهِ إِنْ كَانَ عَلى يَسَارِهِ أَحَدٌ. And also his returning of salam to the one on his left if there is someone on his left. How many salams are those? 3. Now this might seem quite odd to many people because of the madahib that they grew up in. Not the madahib that they've studied, but actually the madahib they've grew up in. And some of them, they don't even know what a madhab is. They're shambled of their understanding to this on the understanding of this religion to a level where now they think that what they are doing is the right thing. ولكن إذا سألته ماذا فعلت? What have you done? لا يجيبك شيء. بل يأتيك بفلسفة كثيرة وكلام طويل الفارغ لا يعني شيئا أصلا. This person will come to you with a lot of hearsay, something that doesn't even make sense because they're trying to defend their position and their opinion, whereas none of them mean anything. Bear that in mind. And that's the problem of today. يأتي العامي ويفعل ماذا؟ يسأل العالم. العامي, a layman, will literally come and question the alim and question their ability. And question why did they say this? Why would you come up with this opinion? And they think perhaps they are the ones that know. Like a man once, كما حدث لنا الشيخ, our sheikh, he literally gave us this story and it's quite funny. A student goes to a sheikh in the, and I believe it was in one of the harams perhaps, or maybe it was in a halaqah, but let's take it broadly, it was in a halaqah. This student literally goes to the sheikh and tells the sheikh while in the halaqah, Sheikh, you said a hadith. Where did you get the riwayah from? Where is the sanad of the hadith? Where is the silsilatul rijal? Give me the chain of narration. The sheikh gave him the chain of narration. An Ibrahim, an fulan, an fulan, an fulan. And he asked the student, you happy now? And the student said yes. And he sat down. He was pleased and fulfilled with that. And then later on, he asked, أين الطالب الذي سأل عن سلسلة الرجال في الحديث الفلاني? Where is the student that literally was asking about the silsilatul rijal, the chain of narration in a hadith? The student said, that was me, proudly enough. He told him, look, أنت أحمق. You do not have a brain. Because your problem is, you want to come and defend something which you do not have any malaka of. It's not your field. You are literally a student of knowledge. And the man that I mentioned to you, this man is the man that I mentioned to you, perhaps Ibrahim. He is literally the next door shop that I have nearby my house. This one is the gate security. This one is fulan. This one is my neighbor. This one is that. And you literally take this one, this and that, and you think that that's the right thing to follow. But actually, that's not what you do. What you should do is you have to follow this deen according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the waratha to the anbiya, and those who came after the anbiya of the ulama, they have inherited from them. وَلِذَلِكَ بَارَكَ لَنَا اللَّهُ كُلَّ هَذِهِ الْعُلُومِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with all of these ulum. Why should we not learn from them, inshaAllah ta'ala? So what is it? وَكَذَلِكَ رَدُّهُ عَلَى مَنْ عَلَى يَسَارِهِ كَانَ عَلى يَسَارِ أَحَدٌ. He returned the salam to the one on his left if there is anyone on his left. What if there is no one on his left and it's just him and the imam? He says Assalamu alaikum, and he says Assalamu alaikum فانتهى الأمر على حسب المذهب. على حسب المذهب. And then the last one that we will look into was sutratu للإمام والفذ إن خشي أن يمر أحد بين يديهما. And that is to take cover, your harim al-musalli. What is harim al-musalli? Harim al-musalli are the hudud, are the limitations of the praying person, pardon me, when they are praying in this case. And this is specific for the imam, and the imam literally covers for the ma'mum in very short, and also the fadh, the one who is praying alone. Okay? The one who is praying alone. And if they fear, they do this only if they fear that perhaps someone might pass in front of them. But let's say if you're on open desert, or you're somewhere where you know nobody is coming by, and it's a very open, wide place. Do you really need the cover right in front of you? No, you don't. You don't need that. So what happens is that you don't really need it if it's unnecessary. Now, when it comes to a sutra, what's the length of a sutra for it to be regarded as a sutra? Number one. And also at the same time, what are the limitations of a sutra? اختلف العلماء على هذه. The ulama, they've differed on this. But what you need to know is this, is that first of all, the sutra, it has to be from where the joint is off. It has to be the length of it, basically. The length of it, طوله, it starts from the length of the elbow, one dira' basically. One dira', which is, what is it? From here all the way to here. Okay, some ulama, they say is from here all the way to your wrist, whereas some ulama, which is al-asah, is from your elbow all the way to your fingers. من المرفق إلى الأصابع. Okay, من المرفق إلى الأصابع, from the elbow where the joint is, all the way to the fingers. That's how long your sutra has to be for it to be regarded as a sutra. And you don't take anything and assume it to be a sutra, a cover that literally covers you from people passing right in front of you. No, you don't take your car. You don't take a car is different, by the way. You don't take a camel. You don't take an animal. You don't take a little child. You don't take something which has najis on it. You don't take things which are impure. No. You don't take that. Take maybe a stick, put it right in front of you, that long, and then it's enough. Bear that in mind. Or maybe if you have pillars in the masjid, you have trees somewhere, or you can face a wall, or maybe you can face your car, as long as the car itself doesn't have najis or all of that. If you're on the road, inshallah ta'ala, that should suffice. Bi-idhnillahi al-kareem. Lakin, what are the limitations? Is where your head goes for sujood and where your head faces for ruku'. So for mathalan, if you're literally 6 foot and then you go down for ruku' and you're taking a certain limitation, and maybe for sujood specifically, and where your head ends, just 1 inch ahead of you, basically. The 1 inch is not from the ulama, this is me helping you. Okay? Just add 1 inch ahead of you and put the stick there. Put the stick there and khalas, intaha al-amr. You put the stick there, everything becomes easy and life becomes easy. Like, if you're going to say that, you're going to take it further, like 3 meters away. What if mathalan someone wants to literally pass in front of you and you want to stop them? What do you do in that case? Then you're going to have to walk and get all the way there, and that becomes a problem. وهذا الكلام, these type of issues, you leave it to the ulama, the fuqaha, to the scholars of fiqh. You leave it to them. You don't indulge into them, and it's unnecessary for right now. If you want to be a talibul ilm, that's different. If you don't want to be a talibul ilm, هذا ما كفى بك. This is what is enough for you, inshallah ta'ala. And what you need to bear in mind is that the ikhtilaf of the ulama are things that not everyone should indulge in. But what we need as regular people and common people, we just need to take that which is necessary for you and I. So what you've learned today are literally the Sunan of Salah, and you know when you should not avoid the Sunnah, and when are you forgiven of how much Sunnah you dismiss, and when you are not forgiven of how much Sunnah you miss out while you're praying, inshaAllah ta'ala. And for this reason, we are going to keep the fada'il and the meritorious acts of Salah in our next class, bi-idhnillahi al-kareem. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you for how long you've been here, and also studied up to now, inshaAllah ta'ala. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.